The Jews were blamed and were persecuted. They were made to wear a yellow badge on their clothing, identifying themselves as Jewish. But this wasn't Nazi Germany. This was 13th century England. Hi and welcome back to the Historical Crimes and Criminals podcast. It's another History Bite episode and I'm your host, Steve. Before the late 17th century, the Royal Mint's coins were hammer-struck. This meant that during the minting process, the blank coin was not completely circular, while the design was, resulting in quite a few misshapen pieces. There were also 8 royal mints. The result of this odd assortment of minted coins led to people clipping parts of legitimate coins with shears into fingernail-sized metal, and then, when enough was collected, melting them down and taking them to criminal goldsmiths and metal workers to recast them. They became so skilled at it, it was hard to tell the difference. And the practice led to a widespread distrust of the English coinage. The status of the country's coinage reflected its reputation on the international stage and the authority and competence of its government. Debasement of the coins in circulation wreaked havoc in the marketplace. At one time, the shilling, the original value of which was 12 pennies, was worth half its value at 6 pennies, and its lowest point traded for just 2 1/4. The normal values being 12 pence to a shilling and 20 shillings to a pound. For ordinary people, fluctuating values had serious consequences. Prices rose because sellers anticipated a drop in value and adjusted their prices accordingly. The reputation of English coins was so badly damaged that on occasion they were refused as currency, and coins of lower denomination, such as base shillings and groats, were increasingly shunned. But it wasn't a new problem. In 1287, all 3,000 of the Jewish population of England had been rounded up, searched, and been suspected of coin clipping. Preceding the roundup was the Statute of Jewry, imposed by King Edward I in 1275. That statute forbade Jews to deal with money lending. Ostensibly, the measure allowed Jews to make a living by commerce in lawful merchandise and their labour, and to lease land for farming up to 15 years. But the practical effect of the statute was largely to deprive Jews of a legal livelihood. Jews were also limited in where they could reside, and they were now required to wear a yellow badge identifying them as such. Coin clipping was such a widespread practice, and one which both Jews and Christians indulged, and it led to a financial crisis in the kingdom. One contemporary chronicle estimated that, overall, the practice reduced the currency's value to 1/2 of its base value, and by 1275, coin clipping had been elevated to the status of capital crime. It was in this context that on November 1278, a raid on coin clippers got underway. According to the Bury Chronicle, all Jews in England, of whatever condition, age, or sex were unexpectedly seized. They were sent for imprisonment to various castles throughout England, and while they were thus imprisoned, the innermost recesses of their houses were ransacked. Some 680 Jews were detained in the Tower of London, with more than 300 subsequently executed on suspicion of coin clipping. All Jews were eventually expelled from England in 1290. But throughout the centuries, coining continued to be a profitable business. An informant to the authorities, Gregory the Butcher, estimated there were 100 people involved in a clipping gang which brought in £6,000 a month. This sum was equivalent to around £600,000 nowadays. Even when split 100 ways, this is still a profitable business. In 1696, a fish seller named John Moore, imprisoned in Newgate Jail, accused of being a clipper, tried to buy a pardon for £6,000. The practice of having edged security, milling edges, edged inscriptions, began around the 17th century as a way to deter the clippers. But as until the mid-20th century, coins were often made of silver or gold, which were quite soft and prone to wear. This also meant coins naturally got lighter as they aged, so coins that had lost a small amount of bullion would still go unnoticed. The guinea was the first English machine-struck gold coin. The name came from the Guinea region of West Africa, where much of the gold used to make the coins originated. Originally worth £1 sterling, rises in gold relative to silver caused the value of the guinea to increase, at times to as high as 30 shillings. From 1717 to 1816, its value was officially fixed at 21 shillings. It lent its name to both the annual 1,000 and 2,000 guinea horse races, first run in 1809 at Newmarket. They are part of the 5 races referred to in Britain as the Classics, also including St Leger Stakes, the Oaks, and of course the Derby. The machine-struck coin made it more difficult to counterfeit, but the criminals were not to be deterred, as between 1691 and 1816, over 1,000 people were tried at the Old Bailey for the crime of coin clipping, and it was estimated that 46% of those tried were women. We see modern coins made of hard, cheap metals such as steel, copper, or a copper-nickel alloy, reducing wear and making it difficult and unprofitable to debase them. But, as we all know from our cost, no matter how good technology becomes, there are always people counterfeiting. £1 coins in the UK were the most common. In May 2015, a survey by the Royal Mint found that 1 in 40 of all pound coins were actually fake. This was 2.5% of all pound coins in circulation. It led to a new 12-sided £1 coin with extra anti-counterfeit measure being issued in 2017. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did and want to know more about the subject, I would recommend an excellent episode on the podcast Con Artists, episode 31, William Chandler, a 17th century counterfeiter. It really is a wonderful story. And I would also recommend Benjamin Meyer's book, The Gallows Pole. Well, that's all. Till next time, bye bye.